everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm playing in the brand new Tier 8 German Tier 9 Premium Tank. It is the KPJP T3 Jaeger. Now, I did a full tank review on this vehicle last week, and since then it pretty much cemented how I felt about the vehicle. It's just not really my play style, and that's okay. Just because there's a tank that goes in the game that I don't really vibe with doesn't mean that it's not a decent vehicle, at least for the kind of player base that will enjoy the aspects that this tank offers, and that's what I tried to cover in my review. I didn't really ever enjoy playing this thing when I was making my review on it, but I've learned by doing hundreds of tank reviews over the years that my job is to kind of let you know, what will this be the vehicle for you, right? And just because it isn't the vehicle for me doesn't mean that I can't at least just try to paint a fair picture for all of you out there. And I stand by what I said in my tank review. This tank is great if you want to just sit still, hopefully behind some bushes, and just dump rounds on enemies. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in this game today. And it's going to get incredibly spicy towards the end. Now, I want to deviate away from talk about the T3 Jaeger for a little while to really talk about just tanks in general, something which I don't talk about on this channel. What do you mean, QB, talk about tanks in general? I mean about the kind of the feeling of World of Tanks throughout 2023. Last year, towards the end, we saw some outrageous tanks going into the game. I'm looking at you, BZ176. We also had the ridiculous Char 75 go into the game. And while I don't think the Char 75 is game-breaking, I don't think it's outrageous, I don't think it's overpowered, for example. I think it's very good, don't get me wrong, but I don't see everyone complaining about the Char 75 like they do the BZ176, for example. But this year, I'm trying to think about what content Wargaming have actually added that at least has been enjoyable for me. Now, at the start of the year, I think in January, we had a whole tech tree of Japanese tank destroyers go in the game. My preview of the Japanese tank destroyers pretty much said they're like a Jagdpanzer 100 meets a Grilla, but somehow, when you kind of blend two things into one, it just isn't really fun in either way. The Jagdpanzer 100 is fun because you've got big boy pen, big boy alpha, and the tank just seems to have some kind of spirit. You're driving around an E100 without a turret with a huge gun. It's just focused on maximum destruction. When you're playing the Grilla, on the other hand, you're a super accurate sneaky tank that gets around the battlefield pretty fast and dumps still 750 alpha damage with more ease than arguably any other tank in the game. Yet with the Japanese tank destroyers towards the top end with the Ho-Ri 3, Wargaming gave it decent enough armor, if you can manage to hide the hull, that is. A decent enough gun, which just doesn't really... I think it's got 700 alpha damage. It's accurate, sure, but it's not accurate like a Grilla. I didn't want it to be like the best of both. But somehow, I don't really see too many Japanese tank destroyers unless it's the overpowered Tier 7 one, right? And so I feel like the whole of the Japanese tank destroyers addition to the game was just kind of like filler content. But also I think it was a real missed opportunity by Wargaming to change the game a little bit, which hopefully each tech tree does. It adds to the game, changes a little bit to keep the meta exciting. I didn't feel like the Japanese tank destroyers quite ticked it for me. Next up, we had the British wheeled mediums go into the game, and ladies and gentlemen, I've been taking a look at the win ratio of the Tier 10, the Concept 5, and now that all the sweaty nerds have got bored of it and not trying to play it to be able to get their third mark of excellence or try and grind all the field mods on it, its win ratio has fallen to below the Object 140 just today, at least on the European server in the last 30 days. And while I wouldn't really judge a vehicle being successful based on it having like a really good win ratio, I can tell you it's going to fall even further. It will fall below the Leopard. It might fall between some of even the reward vehicles, something like an AMX 30B that nobody's really playing, and the T62A as well. And those vehicles have been power crept. And it's so sad to see a tank go into the game that just held, at least for me, so much opportunity for Awesome to just be so mundane and so boring, adding absolutely nothing to World of Tanks, and just frankly being as powerful as a tier 9 medium tank that you have to suffer with at tier 10. Well, at least that's my opinion on the British wheeled mediums. I actually kind of like the tier 9. The tier 9 because it has reasonable amounts of camo, and because it actually has, I'd say, better damage per minute at tier 9 than the Concept 5 has at tier 10. And the step up H tier, your tank has to get better and better. And add to that, in my opinion, a whole host of just nothing premium tanks that have gone into the game. The T-54 Heavy, so boring. The T3 Jaeger, possibly the most boring tank that Wargaming have ever added. And for me, the G-Saw 1010, well, I didn't really like that tank at all. Again, I don't feel like it adds anything to the game. It doesn't do anything new. It doesn't change the way the game plays. And there are so many interesting, exciting, great vehicles in the game that it seems bizarre to me that Wargaming would add in a wheeled medium tank, give it no real cool features, and actually just make it as if it's kind of slower than some of the medium tanks we already have in the game, with much worse firepower potential, and that the wheels on that tank are a hindrance rather than actually being a feature of the tank. Now, I was thinking to myself, I've got to be fair, there are actually some tanks that have gone into the game that have been exciting this year, and that probably is the two that cost about $150 or $200 of currency, right? The Lion went in this year earlier, fabulous tank. Really exciting. I don't think it's flat out completely overpowered, it hasn't shifted the meta, but darn is it exciting. Just has this grey cloud lining of, rather than a silver cloud lining, of the fact that Wargaming stupidly decided to nerf the Projector because they made it artificially too powerful, or should I say too popular, not too powerful, and then nerfed it even though it was balanced, while adding in, ironically, a vehicle for like $150 of currency that is just way better than the Projector 65. The other vehicle that's gone in, that while I don't think it's revolutionary, it's actually fun to play, is the Kampfpanzer, the vehicle that I featured a couple of days ago on this YouTube channel, which I managed to get a new record in. And that's not why the tank is exciting. It's exciting because it's balanced. I don't see it tearing up the matchup, and it has a different enough playstyle to something like a WZ-111-5A that it's a tank that I might actually want to play, and a vehicle that I feel was worth the significant currency investment from me to be able to get my hands on it. So that is really the state of World of Tanks at the moment. I feel like Wargaming have failed with two of the tech trees they've added in this year. And I feel that they're just adding in premium tanks that are not as exciting as vehicles that we already have. And while I don't want the new vehicles to be flat out broken, it is perfectly possible to add in balanced tanks that are still outrageously fun. Look at the Caliban, for example. That is a tank that has an auto reloading 152mm with 600 alpha on the AP and I think 850 on the HE. To all intents and purposes, that should be the outrageous broken tank, not kind of like the BZ-176, which is actually doing less damage with its HE rounds and significant, albeit more with its armor piercing rounds, but it doesn't have 2 rounds like the Caliban does. Now, I'm not trying to say that I want more tanks like the Caliban in the game. It's not what I'm suggesting. But what I am saying is it's perfectly possible to make ridiculous tanks that have novel gameplay or are just fun, that aren't just completely overpowered. And I truly hope that Wargaming have some special stuff lined up for us for the next load of tanks that come out this Christmas. Because I'm just sitting here itching, like, give me something to look forward to. Give me something that's a little bit different, to add a little bit of spice to the imagination. Because I feel like 2023 has been a year with regards to new content that I think that Wargaming have really dropped the ball. Now, I would like to highlight that there have been many other good things that Wargaming have done. Look at the balancing that they've just done recently. I think apart from the turtle, they pretty much got it bang on. And amazing job by Wargaming to address the 279E and the Chieftain. I really feel like it's freshened up Tier 10, and I feel like Tier 10 matchmaking is, well, it's definitely not perfect by any means, but I think it's a lot better than it previously was, where it felt like whichever team had more, should we say 279Es or Chieftains, just had such a tremendous advantage that the game felt like it was a little bit unplayable. So Wargaming have done lots of good things, but you know what? I don't pity the situation they're in as the developer, that after a whole decade of developing this game, that they have to dig deep to find those creative juices to still find exciting new prospects and exciting new mechanics. And it's something that Wargaming are always very good at. I would have never have thought, for example, of the Italian auto-reloading mechanic or the Italian heavy auto-reloading mechanic with the shell compensation. And they've had so many different tanks go into the game as well that just don't really get attention, like the Char 75 or like the Caliban, which are so different and so fun to play. And I really hope that with the new Japanese heavy tanks that look like they're going to be most likely coming up in January, the Wargaming really add something that could be very exciting there. And that's my prediction. My prediction is this Christmas we are going to have the new Tier 8 or Tier 9 Japanese heavy tank. It's probably going to be Tier 8. I think it's called like the Type 63 or something. You can currently find it on Tanks GG. You might have seen a few of them being super tested in the game. I believe those are going to be in the Christmas loot crates. And then in January, we will see a whole new line of Japanese heavies that I hope will add some spice to the game. Because Wargaming, I really feel like you failed with the Japanese tank destroyers, and I feel like you've massively failed with the British wheeled medium tanks. And how you have failed with the British wheeled medium tanks is completely beyond me, considering that has so much scope for excitement and awesomeness. So now that I've said about what I feel with all of the new vehicles that we've got in the game, what was this round? This round was a story of 3 heroes coming back in this battle, and while there's no doubt there were other players who were involved in it, boy, it's looking like we might end up picking 12 kills between us. So I've invited both of my friends, who are named Sniffer Gas Oil, as I managed to get destroyed there by the gorilla, and also Sparfrick, who have managed to do a tremendous job. And I have to admit, earlier on, I said to the STRV 1030 that it looked like they were struggling with some of their shots. Rewind the video and watch, and the STRV missed so many shots in this game, but they are not going to disappoint me towards the latter part, as they suddenly came alive, started to hit all of their shots, and I thought that I would try and spot for them while to take a little bit of the pressure off them. The gorilla blind fires. Omer Sparik manages to get one shot into the gorilla and finishes them off, securing that crucial contribution medal of 12 kills between us. Maybe I was a little bit too cheeky at the end of the game, worried that the gorilla was going to run away, as I kind of threw the Brothers in Arms medal, which is for 3 kills for each of your platoon members. A challenging thing to do with a platoon of 3, but unfortunately, to be able to achieve Brothers in Arms, everyone has to stay alive at the end. Now, I could think of no better game of World of Tanks than to talk about all of these feelings that I've had with Wargaming, and in my opinion, their missed content through 2023. Then playing in their latest and what should be one of the greatest opportunities to make an exciting Tier 9 German tank destroyer. In the end, the T3 Jaeger is just too slow. Unlike the gorilla, which is only 1 tier higher, doesn't hit hard enough like the gorilla, which is 1 tier higher. And this results in having to play this really boring style of gameplay. We were just sitting in one position, albeit comfortably, using the vehicle's darn good accuracy. And I really don't want to become resigned in my feeling for World of Tanks as well, i.e. having to sit at the back of the map with frankly mediocre gameplay in a tank with no capabilities outside of a one-trick style. And while, as I've already said, I know the T3 Jaeger isn't meant for me, I'd like to know in the comments whether you really have vibed with any of the new tanks that Wargaming have been releasing into the game? Or do any of you share my feeling that 2023 just feels like a year where the new content never really hit the mark? So a crucial contribution here for the T3 Jaeger, and that is about it, with my two friends nailing more experience than I was able to achieve in this game. But just like the faith that I had in my friends with this impossible comeback, I hope Wargaming are also going to make the impossible comeback in 2023 with 2 failed tech tree launches, with some Christmas cheer and the Japanese heavies on the horizon. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Is this just a feeling that I've had throughout 2023? Or do you feel like a lot of the new vehicles going into the game are just not catching you? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.